I'd like to call the City of Apache Junction Council meeting of May 21, 2024 to order and ask everyone to put their cell phones on silent. The invocation will be led by Councilmember Brian Solar, the pledge by Councilmember Bambi Johnson.
Our Father, who art thou in heaven, we ask thee to bless this meeting, endow us with thy spirit. May all of our actions and decisions be guided by thy hand, that we may be fair and just to all. Bless our council, police, fire, emergency medical, military personnel, city employees, and our citizens. We ask this in thy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Present.
Councilmember Cross,
Here.
Councilmember Heck,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Nesser,
Present.
Councilmember Soller.
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Consent agenda. As a reminder, all items of consent agenda will be approved with one motion. If a council member wishes to remove an item for further discussion, the request must be made prior to approving the consent agenda and will be moved to new business. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move the consent agenda be accepted and approved as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Councilmember Soller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder,
Present.
Councilmember Nesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Cross,
Yes.
Councilmember Heck,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay,
I didn't even catch on to that.
okay. Since we don't have any awards and presentations for different to this time, intergovernment meeting updates from the council. Anyone over here have? I have none. Anyone over here?
I do. I have a presentation to do. If we could bring up, there we go. I was fortunate enough to be able to go back to Washington, D.C. and represent Arizona's fallen law enforcement officers. This year, Arizona had only a historical name. We didn't have any officers killed in the line of duty over the last year. Unfortunately, we're starting this year out with one from Tucson. He was killed this year, but he'll go on to memorial next year because it was too late in the year. But this is me standing in front of Russell Duncan's name. He died in 1983. He was Apache Junction officer. He died in a training accident. And I would like to give the chief the etching I did and a memorial coin for this year's memorial in honor of Officer Russell Duncan.
Very nice.
Well, I was at the, was about 3 weeks ago, I think it was. We had a Earth Heart presentation from Fry's that gave them some funds for the community garden that they did. And it was attended by 3 of us there. And it was something that they're going to be able to expand their garden area, and it was, you know, something that I thought was very unique in the aspect on it. And of course, this is something recognizing the Earth Hearts, excuse me, park area, and it is was going to be fantastic. Also today, at the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport, we had a session. This picture is going to show the new development that for the gates over on the the left side, wait, back up, hold it. And they now have 11 gates that you can actually go out. They've increased it by 5 on the I'm going to say it's on the north side, really. And it is something that they're looking forward to, number of increased traffic. Also, from the Arizona Association for Economic Development, the Best Award of Best of Arizona Award, it's the next picture, was recognized for their unequaled dedication to economic development in the state. It's an award that recognizes how an economic area has been very growing and very something that's been very special. And the airport has been recognized as being the outstanding growth in it. And it's been something that I've been very proud of being involved with and seeing this growth. I used to be out there working at it when it was an Air Force base, and I've been at other Air Force and Army bases that have shut down and saw how things really went to pot, and they had some major problems, and you go to them now, and there's not much going on in there. This airport out here is growing tremendously, and this coming fall, there's going to be a business that's going to open up, and this next spring, there's another one that's going to be opening up, and they're talking a bit better than over 2,000 job opportunities in the just east of us at the airport. Okay. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bryant Powell, City Manager. Tonight I get to share 2 items, and the first is the overwhelming success of our most recent open house regarding our downtown master plan, strategic planning process. I want to thank everyone involved, including our mayor and council and our community, who has been so supportive in getting this collective information together. We have one more coming up for the public, and we will be getting that information out to everyone. Just wanted to share a picture of the interaction that was going on, and we had over 100 folks come and go throughout that couple hours. Tonight, I'd like to introduce to you and to the community our newest team member, 2 days with the City of Apache Junction, Kayla Fulmer, to come on up. She's our Director of Community Communications and Marketing. Kayla comes to us most recently from the J.O. Combs School District, worked there about 5 years as the Director of Marketing Community Relations. In addition, spent a couple years over at Paradise Valley Community College in a marketing position, and then prior to that worked several years as a public information officer of the city of Casa Grande. So she's very familiar with Pinal County, familiar with local government, and Your Honor, this is Kayla.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Bryant shared, my name is Kayla Fulmer, and I am very excited to come before you tonight as your new Marketing and Communications Director, particularly here in the city of Apache Junction. As he shared, I'm also a lifelong Arizona resident who has lived and worked in this region for many, many years, so it's very much feels like home. It is only day 2, as he shared, though I am eager and excited to jump in. Bryant, Matt, and truly the entire team has been so welcoming and made this onboarding process so seamless. So I couldn't be happier to be here. I will be reaching out to each of you to schedule meetings so I can learn a bit more about how I can best execute and support your vision for the functions of this department. And I look forward to amplifying our story and showcasing the bright future for our city. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm glad to hear you're going to set up some meetings because we have a lot to talk about.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kayla, and that concludes my report, Your Honor.
Announcement of current events.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'll be covering for Eli tonight. Just 2 events we want to bring to your attention and the public's attention. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Coffee with a Cop at Gravity Coffee, which is at the southeast corner of Apache Trail in Ironwood. Go through the drive-through there and you get a chance to be served by a police officer and have a chat with them. So we invite the public to go out to that tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And also this Friday evening, May 24th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., is a free event for families to kick off the summer pool season. And just one note that you'll see on our calendar events, children 7 and under must be within arm's reach of an adult at all times. And swim diapers are required for those not potty trained. So just as a reminder to the public. But that is a great event to kick off our summer pool season. And we thank the Parks and Rec staff for all the preparation and efforts they do to make this such a great thing for our community. And that concludes my events.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to take agenda item number 15 from new business, presentation discussing possibility adoption of the Rodeo Grounds Event Center Master Plan. Liz.
Good evening, Mayor Wilson, members of the City Council. Liz Lingenbach, I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of AJ. I'm happy to be here again tonight, and tonight is really just a recap of what we've been sharing. We've shared multiple times throughout the last several months of this master plan update for the rodeo grounds. Again, just some little bit of brief background for those in the audience or folks that haven't been to any of our previous meetings. This is property that was currently on a BLM, Bureau of Land Management, rec and public purpose lease that we enjoyed free of charge for many, many years. Unfortunately, we're prohibited from doing any commercial use of that facility. So we really pursued being able to purchase that. 2006 was when our original master plan was adopted. And then just this last summer, we all enjoyed celebrating the purchase of the rodeo grounds, the 20 acres, and celebrated our transfer of keys in October. Whoops, I gotta remember that I'm not in a PowerPoint. We've had multiple, and I won't go through all of these, we shared this the last time we were together, but we've had multiple stakeholder events or meetings. We have reached out to the public, had public meetings through the Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as a community survey, just to get ideas and thoughts from everybody of what they'd like to see in the rodeo grounds. In April, we presented the final draft of the master plan to City Council and received all of your last input and kind of gave a chance for anybody else to be able to share if there was anything that maybe we had potentially missed. Just as a reminder, the area that we are master planning is just the 20 acres here, which is the rodeo grounds property. Everything surrounding it is the Prospector Park, 276 acres. That's a separate lease that will remain on a recreation and public purpose lease. We do many, 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 many programs there and really enjoy the benefits of a free facility. We only purchased this small section. That's what we could afford to do at this time. This is the current site map. So that 20 acres is within this rectangular area here. And then just as a reminder to the community and to council, the proposed master plan is just meant to be conceptual. It's will be implemented in phases based on funding later on. And then we're going to try to focus those first phases on areas that will bring the most maximum benefit right away. So there's a whole lot of wish list items on there that we want to have happen, but we want to make sure that we can get the most return on our investment right away from some of the amenities that we bring in the initial phases. And then finally, we just want to make sure that we are ensuring a multi-purpose facility. So the emphasis is certainly rodeo and equestrian, but the goal of council over the last several years has always been to be able to bring many more events, concerts, other things just to attract people to our great community. As we had shared at our previous meeting, the total cost, if we were to do everything on this master plan, is approximately $23 million. We are talking about doing it in a phased approach as funds become available, as we seek multiple sources, whether it's grants, some general fund dollars, there might be other pots of money and other corporate partnerships that we will be pursuing. I'm not going to go into great detail of the master plan. This is very similar that we've been sharing over the last several months. It's what's been out in the lobby as well for folks to take a look at. But if you have any specific questions, when we're all wrapped up, we can certainly come back to this page and go through any questions that you might have. But just as a reminder, all of these items we are trying to make some placeholders so that way we knew these are the amenities that ultimately we want to have in this facility so that we can have maximum use later on down the road. Some of the areas and just some of the imagery of the types of amenity and improvements that will be happening there. There isn't a whole lot of covered, meeting space or event space there. So there are a couple of different types of shade structures and shade features that we'll be having there for multiple events throughout the year. Expanding our bleachers. We have a great partially covered grandstands right now that were one of our improvements back in 2006, 2008 timeframe. So we know we need more seating for future events. Currently, we can easily serve every event that we're doing and many of the events that we're bringing in next year with the existing bleachers, but we know that that's something that we want to improve over time. A lot more ADA accessibility, walkways, things where a lot more vendor booths, car shows, different things like that can take place at this facility. And then finally, portable covered stalls. So right now in the master plan, they're depicted just as a spot on the map, not the ideal spot for every single event, but the nice thing about what we are looking at investing is that they are portable, that they can be set up in areas that make the most sense for the various events that are happening. I don't want to also fail to mention the event stage that we are proposing as one of the final stages. It is one of the, as we talked about last time, right now we have a wonderful mobile stage that we can use at multiple events. The event stage itself would end up being a pretty high cost item, and so that's something that we would recommend doing in one of our later phases once we're bringing in more revenue and we're able to see how successful the facility is. Let's see here. Tonight, staff respectfully recommends council adoption of the final Rodeo Event Center Master Plan concept. Upon adoption, staff would work with city management as well as city council to determine phasing of all projects based on funding. So tonight, we're really focused on just approving that, yes, this master plan is all the things that we're looking to do in that space. And then we will begin the next process, which is figuring out which funding we have. We put in, as a reminder, about $1 million next year that will kick us off, that we felt we had in our fund balance to be able to kick off the design of whichever phases we want to start design in, as well as some limited construction. So we will not make it until probably about 3/4 of the way through once design is done. But some of the biggest features that everybody could use right now is improvements to the infrastructure. So that's a major item with bringing water, electricity, data connectivity farther along in the rodeo grounds area, as well as that one shade structure that's right by the restrooms that are out there right now. Currently, we have a system that our staff have to put up and take down. It is not going to last us much longer. We really want to make sure that we ensure that we have a permanent structure there moving forward, and that'll benefit all of the groups year-round versus just the 2 or 3 that are able to use it currently during the year. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to go back to any of the slides.
Yes.
Liz, back to the stage.
Okay.
So how about the conceptual, the other drawings? Or
Yes.
the right. So all your stages are under pavilions. Could we, if you're saying you want to hit this in stages, when the money comes in, could you build the pavilion that our portable stage would fit under and then use that, and then as time goes by, build an actual stage underneath that pavilion?
So all of these are just ideas of what they could look like. So absolutely, there are things that we could look at. Our stage already has kind of a cover over it,
Yeah, I
and
thought
so
it
it's
did.
already shading the band and anybody who's utilizing it. So sometimes maybe more of a pad or something like that you could come right up alongside of. That might be plenty sufficient. So yeah, there's a lot of options of what we could do in the meantime. I think one of the goals with that structure later on in our final phases is it also would have restrooms and other things in the back portion of that, just so that way any building that we put here, that we utilize that space for storage as well as restrooms for these mini events.
And one more, is this something like, for example, our 4th of July event? Is this something that would eventually maybe move over to that area?
So while it's possible, it's not, so that's, for that example, it's not ideal for 4th of July just because of the fireworks and being so close to the open space and desert, but absolutely, and so many of our other events could certainly be moved over there. I know the Chamber of Commerce is looking at potentially moving FOTS to that location. We already have a Bluegrass Festival that Riley King, our management analyst, has secured for sometime in, I think it's in January, but
End of January.
yeah, and so we've got a lot of really great events that are coming there, and absolutely we could be moving more and more activities there.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Your Honor.
Yes.
So, Liz, you just touched on it. So my understanding is we have a number of outside organizations that have expressed an interest in our rodeo and event center.
Yes, and you know, that would be one of our focuses. Once this is adopted, we would have a little, and once we get an idea of what is going in first thing, we'll be able to definitely let folks know what is available here. So there's many events where they bring in their own stage. They bring in, they're used to going to facilities where they just need the space, and but having that electricity infrastructure, some of those things would be a major help. And so yeah, I think we have 2 major events that are looking on the horizon for next year. But even the events that we had, even the smaller activities and events would really benefit from some of these other events, and we could definitely be attracting more things each weekend.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I just have one more question. So this, because how you're saying is, $23 million. But this isn't just a rodeo grounds. We want to turn this into Apache Junction's basically event nucleus. This is
Right.
This is where we want to say, hey, come enjoy all the festivities here. We want to renovate this thing into something that people from all over the valley can come in and just enjoy themselves.
Absolutely. And so, as you look at the master plan, that's sort of the goal of all of this, is ultimately we'd want to have something happening there every single day of the week. We'd want to be having multiple events there at times. When it's not Last Dutchman Days, which takes up the entire space, we could be having weddings on one end and Cowboy Church on the other end and a small bull riding event, all 3 things happening at the same time. That's happening at multiple facilities throughout. And so the staffing that we have coming on, the staff that are currently on board right now, that's our goal, is as we start to add some of these amenities that make it easier to attract some of these groups, we'll be able to do more and more things, and it's absolutely supposed to be will be an attraction for folks to come out to this area. But that is also why we've talked about a phased approach. So that's not happening overnight, and I think we'll be able to show what we can do in the first couple of years, and that will help us to know what kinds of investments we want to make. I think there's a lot of things that we can do. When we shared the funding last time, $4.5 million over the first couple of years, and then looking at some of these other expansions later on.
Thanks, Liz.
Okay, well, thank you. Do I have a motion on this item?
Your Honor,
Public.
Yes. Yes.
I move that the adoption of the Rodeo Grounds Event Center Master Plan be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Councilmember Nesser,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Cross,
Yes.
Councilmember Heck,
Yes.
Councilmember Soler,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we look forward to growing. All right. Public hearing to receive input and discussion for partial project for fiscal year 2024 CDBG and SSP funds. Misty.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Misty Mosley, Grants Administrator. So, yes, we're talking about CDBG tonight. So I'll run through some of the important things about it. So, to use this funding, the project must meet one of 3 national objectives. So I have those listed there. The ones in orange are the only ones that we qualify for. And I can skip to the last one because AJ is currently more than 51% low to moderate income, so we qualify for the community-wide benefit, so we can do projects throughout the city without having to focus on a specific area or limited clientele. So eligible uses and examples would be public infrastructure, community facilities, housing, public services, economic development. Some of the things we've done in the past, for the last 5 to 6, maybe even 7 years, we've mostly done street improvements with this funding. Further back than that, we've done things with the food bank, we've spent money on housing rehab, and it's no longer available for this use, but it used to be used for public safety equipment. So here is a snapshot of the past funding and what we have available this year. So as you know, we have been doing 2-year partnerships with Gila County, where we trade funding. So we take theirs 1 year and then they take ours. So we get a double portion. So this year, the allocation is $84,607. And there's some rounding that happened with that. So the amount that we have already awarded available to us for a project is $169,215. And so that's the CDBG-RA, which I said is an allocation. So already awarded, already ours. Then we have the opportunity to apply to SSP, which is State Special Project Funding. And we can submit an application that is the budget up to $750,000. And they have $2.7 million available. And it's only available to smaller communities like us. So our odds are pretty good, I think. So what I normally do, what you will see where in 21 and 22, where I did not apply, that was because those are the years that our funding went to Gila County. So normally I apply for SSP for the same project that we're going to use the RA money for. And that works to our advantage because it makes the application competitive because it counts as a matching funding. So some of the projects that have been talked about among staff and public comments so far have been park improvements. So I know that this funding stream has been mentioned during Dark Skies meetings. So one of the eligible uses would be to use that for the lighting retrofit that we're calling Phase 2, which is around the library and the MGC and the 2 parks that are in that area, the City Complex Park and Veterans Memorial. And to go after the SSP funding, we could increase the scale of that project and include maybe other park improvement things like shade structures or any other park improvements to build up the budget. But it's all depending on, okay. So here's the process and the timeline for this funding stream. Tonight, we're having the first public hearing, and then I'll be back before you again on June 18 for our second public hearing, and at that time, I'll ask that a resolution be passed that formalizes the project we're gonna apply for. And then those applications are due in August, and then we will be awarded in October, and then we can start the projects shortly after that. And before I open it up to public comment, I would just, check in a box here. We do have a grievance procedure and policy. If anyone needs to submit one or read about that, it's on our website. And there's my contact information, and that is all for me. Questions, comments?
Any questions?
Not at this time.
No questions?
I think it's great.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to step forward and make some comments? Yes.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Harshman, a resident of Apache Junction, and I'd like to propose that if we can get grant money to fund the infrastructure along East Junction Street that's laid out in the active transportation plan as approved in the 2020 general plan, specifically the multi-use trail that's supposed to run down that side and sidewalks. This would benefit the people, the senior living people, and the housing that's being built at Winchester and East Junction now. And it'll also benefit all the new residents that we're going to get there. As you know, we've got like 4 high-density or medium-density housing projects that are being built in that general vicinity there. And any foot traffic that we can get, I think, that in that area that we could funnel toward Fry's, funnel toward the new active or the new concentrated downtown plan would be beneficial. And there are a lot of senior people out there now who drive up and down East Junction Street in motorized wheelchairs. And I would challenge you guys to go drive a car up and down East Junction Street. And we have people doing that now. So I think it'd be a good community benefit, and it would also be benefit to the businesses in the downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Nope, see movement.
Hello, Mayor, City Council. My name's Cheryl Bigelow. I got to get my residence, right? This is the first time I've done public hearing. 2200 North Delaware Drive, Lot 52, Apache Junction. I appreciate the opportunity to express my input in the CDB funding. So I'd like to start with just a brief description of the entitlement program. And it's according to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Program entitles cities and urban counties to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities principally for low and moderate income persons. This program states that grantees must give maximum feasible priority to activities which benefit low and moderate income persons. It also states that grantees may fund activities when the grantee certifies that the activities meet other community development needs having a particular urgency because existing conditions pose a serious and immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community, where other financial resources are not available to meet such needs. Some eligible activities listed for the CDB funding includes rehabilitation of residential and non-residential structures, as well as conversion of school buildings for eligible purposes. These constitute public service activities. With all that being said, I'd like to bring to your attention the increase of the senior homeless community and the majority of them living in their cars, which poses a serious and immediate threat to the health or welfare of the community. There are no day or overnight shelters in Apache Junction, nor is there a safe overnight parking lot. I feel the need for safety of the senior homeless community is an eligible activity and is where the CBG funding should be used. There are many nonprofit agencies who participate in the Apache Junction Homeless Coalition who would be more than happy to assist in the planning of a safe overnight parking lot and/or a temporary shelter for at least the summer months. As Executive Director of Begin Again Homes, our mission is transitional housing and emergency shelter, we'd be more than happy to help facilitate in any needed capacity. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else? And I don't see any motion. All right, there's no motion now, so I'll close the public hearing. Excuse me. Items number 12, 13, and 14 are related to the same subject matter. After hearing the staff's presentation, I will combine the public hearings, but we will need to have a separate motion for each one. So presentation, discussion, public hearing, consideration for resolution number 24-09, for ordinance number 1547, and resolution number 2408.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and fellow council members. My name is Kelsey Shatnick. I'm a planner on staff, and tonight is the public hearing for the proposed Silver Ray development, which includes both a plan development rezoning and major general plan amendment request. So the subject site is located at the southeast corner of Goldfield Road and the US 60. The applicant's request includes a major general plan amendment from commercial to high-density residential, a plan development rezoning from general commercial by plan development, B1PD and B1PD, to high-density multiple family residential by plan development, RM2PD, to facilitate the development of 271 rental units. And then this proposal will also include a replat of the existing commercial subdivision to allow a lot combination of the northern parcels. So again, this property is zone B1 PD. However, it is governed by two separate ordinances, which I will explain a little bit on the next few slides. But in terms of the surrounding zoning, to the north we have RSGR and the US 60. To the south and the east we have the Dolce Vita community, and to the west we have the Golden Vista subdivision. So to give a little background on the current ordinances which govern the subject site, first we have ordinance number 1144, which governs the 6 parcels north of Resort Boulevard. So this ordinance approved a commercial center in 2000, and the proposed development included pad sites for a gas station, office, retail, service, restaurant, and a 2-story hotel. The gas station was developed, and the rest of the site remains vacant. Next, we have ordinance number 1146, which governs the large parcel south of Resort Boulevard. This ordinance approved a hospital site in 2000. The development would have included a 60-bed hospital campus with a main hospital unit and medical office building, and a helipad was proposed on the northwest corner off of Goldfield Road. This ordinance also included a height restriction, which was 45 feet, which is approximately 4 stories. Moving on to the general plan land use map. Again, this entire area is designated commercial, and the applicant is requesting a redesignation to high-density residential. So here's the proposed site and landscape plan for the property. The applicant is proposing 271 total units with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom options. All units will be 2-story and have their own private yard. Parking will include open, covered, and garage spaces throughout the community, and there will be shared amenities throughout the community, including a pool, clubhouse, game lawn, dog parks, and a walking path. Here are the proposed elevations for the site. There are 8 building types in total. Each building type includes multiple materials, as you can see on the screen, such as stucco, brick veneer, as well as tile roofs. In terms of public input, a 60-day review notice was sent to local stakeholders and neighboring municipalities. Pinal County was the only response and was not in favor of the major general plan amendment. In their letter provided to staff, they noted the desire for these parcels to remain commercial due to their proximity to an arterial roadway, major highway, as well as existing residences. In addition to this, a sign was posted at the site, and notices were sent out to property owners within 300 feet, and the case was advertised in the newspaper. The applicant also held multiple neighborhood meetings regarding this item. There was a neighborhood meeting with Golden Vista in November of 2023 with approximately 80 people in attendance. In addition to that, staff received 17 emails from residents, a physical letter, as well as a protest petition signed by approximately 170 residents. All were opposed to the request. The primary areas of concern heard throughout that whole process included the building height and their desire to keep the development 1-story, especially along Goldfield Road, increased traffic at the site, availability of water, decreased property values, and a desire for commercial use at the site. There was also a neighborhood meeting held at Dolce Vita in October of 2023 with approximately 100 people in attendance. Staff also recently received one letter written by the general manager, and this letter stated that residents were more interested in the proposed residential development at the site than a commercial development. In terms of the Planning and Zoning Commission, there were 2 public hearings held on this item, one on March 26th and one on April 23rd. Ultimately, the commission voted 4-3 to recommend approval of both the rezoning and major general plan amendment with the elimination of project-specific conditions number 1 and 2. So project-specific condition number 1 would have required the applicant to reserve 5 acres of land for commercial development, and project-specific condition number 2 addressed the uses that would be permitted on that property. So essentially, their recommendation would rezone or redesignate the entire 18-acre property to high-density residential. So the planning staff is generally supportive of this development. However, staff is recommending that at least 5 acres of land on the northern section of the subject site be reserved for a future commercial development. And there are a few factors we considered in making our recommendations. So first, we have the voter-approved general plan, which already designates this area as commercial. And then we have the location to the US 60 as well as the future north-south corridor. We took into account recent concerns of rezoning from commercial to residential, as well as the limited availability within the city for a community commercial type of development. So I wanted to provide a little insight into why staff is only recommending 5 acres remain commercial as opposed to the entire 18 acres. So first, we recognize the site layout constraints. This entire site is bifurcated by Resort Boulevard, which is a private road, and that can create some challenges in developing a cohesive commercial development. It is possible that one could go in here. It just creates an additional challenge for that developer. There is an existing wash along the eastern portion of the site that creates some connectivity challenges between some of the northern parcels. And then just the fact that Baseline and Goldfield dead end just south of the proposed development. We also took into account that we should be mindful of the existing residential communities, and we thought that this created a balance of uses at the site because, as we all know, residential does help support commercial. The 5-acre site that is being proposed also has the best visibility and access from Goldfield Road and the US 60, and 5 acres is adequate to allow for multiple uses depending on the proposed site layout. So keep in mind throughout this process that, planning staff, we are not commercial developers, we're not real estate brokers or economic development experts, and we use different resources than developers to assist in the review of any proposed rezoning requests. So essentially, this means that we have different tools in our toolbox than developers have in theirs. And so in crafting our thoughtfully considered recommendation, staff uses, again, the general plan, past concerns heard by city council members, public input, as well as knowledge and expertise regarding current market and development trends as tools in our review process. Now, again, this is different than the tools that the developer has access to. So developers use items such as market viability studies and regional traffic data to review potential development sites. So staff is recommending approval of P2363PZ and P2364 GPA, subject to the full list of conditions found within the staff report, including project-specific condition number 1, which has been slightly updated. Basically, this is calling out lot numbers 1, 3, 4, and 5 of the existing Commercial Falls subdivision, which are located around the gas station north of Resort Boulevard, basically remaining zone general commercial. However, the intent is the same. It just gets a little bit more specific. Project-specific condition number 2 addresses the permitted use that would be allowed on that site. And then condition number 3 would require the developer to submit a site plan and design review, since this would ultimately impact their current proposal. So we would want to have a look at their new proposal to see that it meets code. So we basically see 3 primary options for this site. So the first would be approval of the general plan amendment and rezoning as proposed by the developer and recommended by the Planning Commission. So the entire property would be rezoned residential. Number 2 would be the approval of the general plan amendment and rezoning as recommended by staff, which would preserve 5 acres for commercial use. Or option number 3 would be the denial of the general plan amendment and the rezoning, which would allow the current zoning to remain in place. So ordinance numbers 1144 and 1146 would remain active, and a proposal that would meet the intent of these ordinances would be allowed to develop, and it would be through a review process. We would determine whether it would have to go through a public process such as a plan development amendment, or it would be allowed to go in by right. And before I end my presentation, I wanted to provide a quick reminder on the major general plan amendment voting process, since it's been a few years since we've had one of these requests. So agenda item number 12 is what addresses the major general plan amendment request. And a major general plan amendment requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. So essentially this means that 5 out of 7 council members must vote to approve the amendment for the request to pass. So in the event that the major general plan amendment request fails, again, agenda item 12, then the associated rezoning, which would be agenda items 13 and 14, would no longer be valid and would not be, cannot be approved. So that's kind of how that process goes. So if agenda item 12 is approved, then we would move on to voting on agenda items 13 and 14. If agenda item 12 fails, then we would not have a vote on items 13 and 14. And before I pass it off to the developer for their presentation that they have for you tonight, I just kind of wanted to thank them for their work on this project. We've had many lengthy but open and honest conversations regarding this project over the past few years, and although we professionally disagree on the development of this site, they have been great to work with, and they really have worked to produce the best possible project within their proposal. So just wanted to thank them really briefly for that partnership. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to the developer for their presentation, and we will both be available after that for any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Jason Barney with Highbridge Partners, and I have my three of my four partners are here with me, John Hartman and Bill Olson, as well as our planner, Greg Davis. I do want to echo what Kelsey said, though, the collaborative process of working not just with planning staff, but with the rest of staff as well as you all has been very much appreciated. There's a lot of places in this valley that I have deep, deep roots, but I very much recognize that here in Apache Junction, I'm kind of the new guy to town. And I really, really do appreciate the way I've been, welcomed here and been able to be part of the discussion and trying to figure out how to do good things for Apache Junction. So thank you, Kelsey, for what you said, and absolutely echo our same sentiment from us as well. I have a lot of information to cover tonight. I'm going to try to move as quickly as I can and be mindful of your time, but there is a lot of information. So as I get going through this, if I get going too fast, if you need me to slow down, let me know. There are certain things that I'm going to just skim over just for the sake of time and respect for your time. These first couple of slides, Kelsey covered this great, so I'll just skip past these. The way I'm going to approach the presentation tonight is two parts. I'm going to cover first commercial viability. And then you can see some of the items that I'm going to cover there in terms of traffic counts and different things like that. Kelsey actually referred to some of those things that we look at. So then I'm going to have Greg Davis, who's our planner. He's going to talk about more of the site details and some of the conversations and meetings we've had with neighbors. And there's a lot of neighbors here tonight. And very glad to see them here and very much appreciative of their involvement. Commercial viability. Just as a preface to this, one of the overriding challenges when we talk about commercial zoning is the predicament that cities are put in, and that is that they rely predominantly on retail sales tax for the revenue. And that's the way it is, but it also puts cities in this situation, and I work in a lot of cities, so I'm very familiar with this dynamic. It puts cities in a position where they feel a lot of pressure to get as much commercial zoning in place as they can, because that's the lifeblood. So I get it, I respect it, but it's a predicament, and there are times, and I'll show you a few examples, where that pressure gets cities to zone things to commercial that probably didn't make sense and end up being a mistake down the road. Also, this is just echoing this awesome relationship we've had with working with staff. We fully respect the position that staff has taken, and that's very, very much driven by what I was just talking about. You guys on council are very, very much in the right to say, hey, we need to look out after our retail sales tax. We need to look out, and it's not just that, it's services for the citizens. It's having a good quality of life in the community. And so we very much respect why staff has taken the position that they have. But as Kelsey mentioned, they've got kind of one toolbox, and then we've got another. And critical to our toolbox is looking at viability. And at the end of the day, guys like me, we have to go take out loans and do personal guarantees on projects. And sometimes things go bad, and it hurts us really bad when that happens. So we try very hard to make sure what we do makes sense. So we'll be looking at that. Bottom line is this. We need rooftops, and we need traffic on Goldfield to make commercial development viable here. And if there's a way for us to to kind of look at the long-range plan of what's happening right there and see that that's coming. I would love to be talking about commercial on this location, but from the data that I'm seeing, and that's a lot of the stuff that we're going to go through here momentarily, we don't see it coming. Now, granted, if you guys can see that, you know, there's something that I'm missing, or staff can see that there's something I'm missing, let's talk about that, because we'd love to go work on that. But right now, we don't see it, and we also really strongly believe that holding out for retail on land that's not viable can end up being a wasted opportunity. We'll talk about what that means. One last note here before I kind of get into the meat of the data. There's a lot of stuff here. If I get through this, and I need to save time for Greg, if it feels like this is just kind of a lot to process, or you feel like you'd like to circle back with staff and kind of discuss any of this further, we're entirely open to having this be kind of a dig into the meat of the data conversation. And if it makes more sense to do a continuance after tonight so that we can talk about it more, we're entirely open to that. I'm more interested in getting this done right than getting it done in a hurry. And so absolutely open to whatever works for you guys. But for us, we want to be able to move forward with this project. We just, and I'll go through why the commercial portion, the 5-acre commercial portion, would be a real serious challenge for us. All right, so as we mentioned, of the recommendations Kelsey had put up on the screen, we would encourage you to approve the recommendation where the entire parcel becomes major general plan amendment rezoned to the residential proposal. All right, let's get into the meat. Commercial viability. There's a regional context and a local context. Regionally, traffic is the issue. And traffic is driven by rooftops and people that live in the area. And I'm going to get into why we have a traffic challenge and what the future looks like for us on that particular location. We've also got some floodplain issues to the south of us that are going to be a significant barrier to new development and new rooftops coming to the south of us, and I'll get into that. As we get locally, Kelsey had mentioned a couple of the awkward geometry issues. Those are real challenges. We live and die in the world of site planning and development and making things work, and just the basic geometry of the site, especially with the private resort boulevard that is the main entrance to Dolce Vita, is a real challenge. And as you notice, there's, we'll look at the letter in a minute, but Dolce Vita doesn't want commercial there. They don't want all that commercial traffic coming in on their private road. It's just, we own it, but we have a joint access easement, and so that's their main road. They don't want that all, you know, busied up with a lot of outside people coming into the location. And then the seasonal residence issue is a major issue. We'll look at some of the traffic data and see how that translates to us in terms of commercial viability. We did have a market study done by Luis Cordova. You should have it in your packet. Just to highlight a couple of the key quotes, you can see them in red. I won't read them for sake of time. But just you glance through, he basically says, this site does not work for commercial. But not only that, he says, this site can actually serve to make other more viable commercial sites in Apache Junction come online quicker, be more viable, be more successful. So that's really what I would like you to consider. There's a misnomer often in these conversations, and that is that residential development doesn't do anything for the city. Actually, residential development does everything for the city, because that's the people that go to the stores, that spend the money, that bring the sales tax, and that is the life's blood. And so we'll kind of walk through, you know, strategically in Apache Junction, where's the best place to focus to make that ultra critical need for you guys to achieve your retail sales tax goals to happen. And I just got to reinforce, I stand with you and support that, how critical that is to have that happen. And I want to be part of the team, not just on this project, but other projects as well, as I look into the future to be part of the team to make that happen. Here's some other things that Luis had in his study, and I'm going to get into more detail about this. So I'm going to skip it, or at least won't go into detail. It just shows that there's not a lot of opportunity for new rooftops to come to that submarket. There's going to be other things that pull it away. And then, of course, the mention of the seasonal nature of the residents. All right. Critical statement I'm about to make. Retailers that drive sales tax need, and is this an approximate number? Could it be less? Could it be more? Starbucks, for example, they won't come anywhere without 25,000 cars a day. Other retailers would be fine with less than 20,000. But there comes this threshold where below that threshold, there just is not the viability for any kind of retail use to go there. So remember that number, 20,000. Again, it's an approximated number. But and when you look at all the traffic data that we're going to look, it's all samplings in different states and time, different times a year. So it's all within a range, but statistically, it's going to tell the story. And the story is we need a lot of traffic to make retail work, and we have very little traffic in our reality, both current and projected. All right, really useful map here. Let's take a second and absorb what this says. I have two data lines coming across here. One is the traffic that's on the US 60. That's the top one in the blue. The other line, and the reason I chose it this way is because if you look at the commercial development patterns along the US 60, kind of the predominant, you see a lot of predominant development of commercial south of the 60, kind of in between the freeway and in between baseline. Think of Cooper Road, Stapley. Think of Alvista, think of Higley. Think of Power Road. Think of Gilbert Road. Signal Butte's got a lot of commercial right there. As you work your way down, kind of think through the implications of what the top line means. And it would be obvious, but it's nice to see the numbers. The farther east you go, the fewer people there are on the freeway. It's just logical. But then as we also work our way east, we go from a lot of traffic on roads like Stapley and Val Vista and Power, up in the 40,000 plus range, to where as we taper down, we get down to Goldfield, which has 1,650. Now that's just one data point. I'll show you some other data points and how we can kind of blend them all and kind of, tell a complete story. Now it's obvious why that is. State line hasn't developed. Someday state line will develop. And when it does, those numbers are going to go up and it's going to be awesome. But there's a timing issue, and there's also some other issues that play into when is that going to happen for Goldfield, and we'll kind of get into that. One thing I thought it would be interesting to point out, though, if you notice the traffic counts on the freeway at Goldfield are less than the arterial traffic counts at some of those really strong retail corridors at Stapley, Val Vista, Power, roads like that. So it's just, it drops off. Is that going to change over time? Sure, especially as we get more development south here. There's probably going to be some more development out in Gold Canyon. I don't know how much, but the reality is freeway traffic really does matter to retail. There's no question about it. But it matters much, much more to regional commercial than it does to local commercial. And any kind of commercial we would do here would not be the large-scale regional destinational commercial. It'd be very local services kind of commercial. So we're not going to get people that are driving miles and miles and miles down the freeway to come to the Goldfield commercial if ever it was to exist. So does the fact that I got 38,000 cars on Goldfield help the commercial viability of our sites? Sure, of course it does. Is it a massive swing that makes it go from, totally unviable to, yeah, maybe this could work? It moves the needle a little bit, not enough to matter. What I really need is the arterial traffic counts. And as you can see, those numbers are very low. We're talking 1,650 per one of the data points that I have. And I need 20,000. So we're way off right now.
Your Honor, are we waiting for this, or can we pipe in and ask questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm okay with that. It's easy.
So if you were to go back to that, one could argue that the Signal Butte here at the 114,000 are Apache Junction residents contributing to that, because there is nothing in our neck in the woods that is desirable for that area. So one could reason that if we had more desirable commercial area on our freeways, that number would decline and the other numbers would improve.
Yeah, I totally agree. But to clarify what these numbers are, these are traffic counts. These don't reflect directly how much money is getting spent at these shopping
No,
centers.
I get it. It's the amount of traffic that goes through that exit. And like, for example, you're saying that, okay, that's a great spot for the residential properties because rooftop brings in commercial, things like that. Now, because of its location on the 60 in Goldfield, if that development gets built and you're housing a few thousand people, they're jumping on Goldfield and they're going to Signal Butte.
Right now they are.
So, well, and that's what they'll do if this development gets built. So for everything that you're saying about how the commercial is just not viable there because there's not enough people there, not enough count, that's because there's nothing there. If there was something there, that count improves. So I just wanted to say that before because I understand it's a pretty longer presentation and I didn't want to forget this, so I'm sorry, continue.
Totally agree with your point. I, in fact, emphatically agree with your point. And I'm going to show you how to translate your point into the win for Apache Junction that we all here want to have happen. So bear with me as I get to that, but absolutely, you're dead right about that. We need that traffic going in Apache Junction, not Signal Butte, and giving their money to Mesa. So, all right, and I will get to that point because that's really, really important what you just said. All right, this is actually the Apache Junction traffic data pulled off the Apache Junction website, and we sat down the other day with staff just to kind of go through this and make sure we're all kind of seeing it the same way. But as you look at these numbers, they tell a similar story to what I just showed on this screen. That now it doesn't show the US 60 numbers. That's what you guys don't capture those numbers for your report, but it shows the arterial numbers kind of working their way down. Now it takes a while. It took me a while to kind of get into all this traffic data and really parse out what's what. On these numbers, it's actually showing each of like the 3062 at Goldfield or the 11604 at Tomahawk. Those are aggregate numbers of the whole intersection. So you have a lesser number going north and another lesser number going east and west, and then they aggregate up to the bigger number. And I'll show you some other numbers that kind of explain that a little bit. But what I want to point out is this. Goldfield, of all the traffic counts in your entire city, Goldfield is not only the smallest traffic count at that location, and I will explain why you're seeing a 3062 here, and I was showing you a different number a minute ago. There's a reason for that. Of all the places in the entire city, that's the smallest traffic count. There's a lot of other places that have a lot more traffic, and Vice Mayor Schroeder, to your point, I want to figure out how to get your Ironwood and Idaho retail corridors to light up, activate, become major destinational retail sales tax drivers, and I want to see the Goldfield traffic be a contributor to making that happen, and I'll kind of get into some more detail on that. Couple of the other observations here. Think about your downtown. Look at your traffic counts up in the downtown. You guys know inside and out what you've been working with to try to get more activity, more commercial activity in your downtown. There's 64,000 cars there at that intersection where the Fry's is, which is awesome, and it's awesome retail that you guys have down there, but you also know you're trying really hard to get more stuff to happen there. Depending on which numbers you're looking at, that downtown traffic count is 20 to 40 times what I've got to deal with on Goldfield. These numbers matter dramatically and significantly, so just take all that into consideration. All right, just a little bit more drill down. This is actually zooming in on the Apache Junction data. There's that 3062 that you see on this map, but you also see what I said a minute ago. As you head north, you're actually getting 1519, and as you head east, it's whatever 718 plus 791 is, so that's the bifurcated traffic thing. I'm going to flip through a couple of data points here just so you see them, but they all basically tell the same story. ADOT says that at Resort Boulevard, where the Chevron is, that I'm getting 992 vehicles a day, much lower. These are your traffic counts from 2012, 2013. I have some newer ones I'll show you. This shows you that we're basically in similar ranges. On the right side, you see the winter ranges, which is 619. That's in that same range that I'm using on my on kind of the average number, I guess you would call it. But what this also tells you is how much impact we get from the seasonal traffic. The seasonal traffic in that particular summer was literally half of what I would get in the winter. So not only do I have to contend with an extremely low traffic count, but summer comes and it just drops off the cliff, And there's just businesses can't thrive with that. I know it's a huge challenge for you guys, and you're trying to address that every way you can, but it's a real challenge for this site. Same exact data picture, but this is 2015, 2016. I would have picked a newer one, but this is the most recent one where you actually have summer and winter. Same thing, now the ratio improved, so that's good news, and that is there's 66% instead of 50%, so the seasonal impact was not as severe that particular year. But as you see this data, the data trends statistically have been pretty consistent over the last 10, 15 years that you guys have been taking data here. So more or less the story is I got traffic counts down in the 1,600 range, and they kind of dropped to somewhere in the range of half in the summer. This shows you just a trend of data. This is, again, that same Goldfield and Baseline intersection from 2013 to 2023. You notice there's some weird spike in 2022. It's probably Renaissance Festival, but I don't know that to be the fact. There's a lot of people who bypass the freeway there. But other than that, it's a pretty consistent trend of what the data is. Bottom line, there has not been a material change. Now, there's going to be a couple things that change that. Century Homes has a development down south of us. That's not built out yet. That's going to drive some new traffic. That's going to help. When our project comes online, if it comes online, that's going to drive new residents, new traffic. So that's absolutely going to help, and I'll kind of have a slide to help us wrap our head around that. All the data sources, you're welcome to have a look at that later if you like. I won't dwell on this. This is another way to look at this, and it's population counts. You'll notice that if you take a 3-mile radius around the Goldfield site, we have 17% of the population that you would have at someplace like Cooper. It's similar as you go to like Val Vista and Power and different places like that. It's generally similar. Again, that's driven by traffic counts, so there's a direct correlation between traffic counts and population. Let's take a second and absorb this slide. What I'm wanting to say here is this. I'm trying to show what the shortfall is. I'm trying to show how far short am I falling in terms of having enough traffic to make this site viable. Now, I picked 1,650 for a couple reasons. Number one, it's the highest number of the data points that I had, so it's just to kind of give the most benefit of the doubt, I picked the highest number. Plus, it's the one that came out of the traffic study that was done specifically for our site. All right, then the next thing I did is I made an estimate of between our project and the Century Homes project that's coming, how much new traffic I'm going to get as a result of those. I think it's around 2,000. These are all estimates. It could be 3,000. It could be 1,500. Whatever it is, there is new traffic coming. So if you take what's there today and has been there for the past 10 or 15 years, 1,650, add a couple more thousand between us and Century Homes, now you're at 3,650. Again, you can round that up to 5,000 if you want, but if I need to get to 20,000, that's my shortfall right there. It is a huge shortfall. Now, could I find a retailer who will be satisfied with something less than 20,000? Sure. I mean, these are ranges, but the more I have this traffic deficit, the more, I'm just going to not be able to get those retailers there, or if they do get there, they're going to suffer and struggle and flounder, which is not good for anybody. Before I move on, any questions about that slide?
Your Honor, I have a question, and I'd like you to go back to your screen. Keep going back. That one.
Yeah.
Well, we've always heard for a long time that there's an old saying about figures can lie. And there's only one thing really, really lacking on this traffic count. Mm-hmm. It's glaring to me that you've never looked at, or if you have, you've ignored. You're saying that we can't bring people to Goldfield. What you're not showing, though, is a little box down here at Gold Canyon coming to Goldfield. And if we got something like a AJ Fine Foods there, or a Trader Joe's or something, how many people from Goldfield are going to come there from the other direction? We'll get that 20,000 coming from the other direction, but you haven't even included all of that. how many people are at Goldfield and Peralta Road and everything, or Gold Canyon, and Peralta Road and all that'll come west to come to Goldfield. So until you can give me a figure for that, how many people that would come to Goldfield from that coming from east to west, I think you've used your figures to your advantage without showing the whole picture.
I would be more than happy to go back and have a traffic engineer talk through that. I can tell you what I think it'll be, because I am quite familiar with kind of how the flows and things happen here. If this was truly a destinational site, like a regional destinational site, that is absolutely the case. That just as Apache Junction right now is going to Signal Butte, where we don't want them going, Goldfield would be going to, Gold Canyon would be going to whatever destinational site we have in Apache Junction. So that's your point, I totally agree.
And it's a year-round population, too.
Yeah. The challenge with that is, and I'm going to show you here again in a minute, as you look strategically at where the true destinational, and that's the key differentiating word, true destinational commercial belongs, it's not on Goldfield. It's either on Ironwood or more likely on Idaho, with all that state land there. And I've done regional destinational commercial. Santan Village, one of our projects. Gateway Town Center at Power and Ray, which is a power center with a Target and Walmart. That's one of our projects. And I've also done the more smaller scale neighborhood commercial projects that are not destinational. So I agree with your point, and I'd be happy to go spend as much time as you'd like to really analyze the Gold Canyon impact of this. But the reality is, your point that you're making, I think really drives to Idaho and to Ironwood, but not so much to Goldfield. And if you'll bear with me, I can kind of show why I think that's the case. So in other words, does Gold Canyon absolutely matter to the Apache Junction? 100%. You go down into Gold Canyon, the retail kind of struggles down there a little bit. Some of it does, and I think there's a desire to have more there, and there's going to be more development there, and they're going to have a desire to have that. But again, they're not going to be going to Goldfield. That's a neighborhood local services kind of commercial. They're going to want to be going to Idaho and to Ironwood. And if you want an AJ's Fine Foods, if you want a Lowe's, if you want any of that awesome stuff like that, it's going to go on Idaho, or it's going to go on Ironwood or somewhere like that. So, but thank you for the point. And if you do want us to go circle back on that, we can. So, any more questions on that slide before I move on? Okay. Now, the question I'm asking right now is this. According to this, I need 16,000 cars, give or take. And that's a pretty good size give or take, but we're not even close right now, right? We're like so far off, it's just not even close. So the real question I ask you is, where is that going to come from? Where is the new rooftops going to come that's going to move the needle on this? And as I mentioned, traffic counts on Goldfield haven't changed for 10 or 15 years. So where is it going to come from? You guys know your town way better than I do. So I'm going to put this in front of you, and you're going to know a lot better than I'm going to know where the growth pattern is going to be that's going to happen here. But I'm looking at a map of Apache Junction with a star right there on my side at Goldfield. And I'm either going to get new development from the south, or I'm going to get it from the north. And other than that, a lot of that's already built out up there. And a lot of it's built out with a pretty low density kind of development, which is consistent with the history and the vision of those areas. But low density basically to a retailer translates to less shoppers. So I drew these red lines just to basically say, what is the vacant land that we have to deal with in Apache Junction? Now, first of all, especially for local retail that's not destinational retail, freeways act as a hard brake. People will definitely cross a freeway to go to a neighborhood commercial thing, but it kind of, more likely people who live north of the freeway are more likely to head into downtown than they are to cross the freeway. Unless they get right up close to us, then of course they're going to come our way. But you know what's up there better than I do. It's a lot of state land, a lot of BLM land, big wash coming through there. And if it does develop, it's going to develop as low density. So it's not going to be a huge traffic driver for us. So really for us, the real opportunity to get new rooftops, to get to whatever that magic 16,000 vehicle count number is going to be, I need development to happen south on the state land. I need it in order to get commercial to happen. Now, that's a true statement for Idaho. That's a true statement for Tomahawk. That's a true statement for Ironwood. You need it all across the board. And so this is a multifaceted problem that we need to overcome, but it certainly impacts me. So what is the timing to see development in Goldfield? Well, let me tell you what I think I see, and part of this is based on conversations with staff, and you guys might have some ideas that we can talk about where maybe there's something I'm missing, and we can talk about that. But here's one way to look at it. I sat down with Sydney and Kelsey last week and kind of thought through what's the timing and pacing all the new rooftop development is going to happen. Right now, it's centered down south of the D.R. Horton Brookfield projects. You got about 4 square miles down there. Sydney kind of thinks that the projections that they've been relying on is maybe 3 to 5 years per 3 to 5 years per square mile to build out. So what is that for that 4 square miles? Maybe 10 to 12 years. Sydney, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like, and I've seen different ones. If a recession comes along, obviously that slows it down. You get a boom going on and it speeds it up. So let's kind of walk through the decades. One thing that is interesting is that I think there's a real good likelihood that development's going to want to push down to that State Route 24 freeway and take advantage of that freeway going out there as that builds out. So, and this is, talking to staff, trying to get a feel for where this is going to go. If development kind of works out that way, then you've got a couple more decades you're waiting there. Then, and this will happen simultaneously. This is all just broad brush guessing. I think you are going to see development going up to the north somewhere sooner than 24 to 36 years, but it's going to take a while for it to get there because there's so much land out there and so much land to absorb. But as you work your way through, it seems to me that Goldfield is kind of last in line. When I talk about Goldfield, I talk about the state land just south of Goldfield, that critical area where I need to get new rooftops to be able to drive traffic to get, to make up the traffic counts to get retail to be viable. So is it 50 years? Is it 30 years? These are broad brush guesses, but that's a long, long time for a little 5-acre site to sit dormant, to sit unproductive. And go back to what I said, houses are not just a wasted resource that has no value to the city. They're the lifeblood that take the people who live there to go spend their sales tax dollars somewhere. And back to your point, Vice Mayor, we need to figure out how to get Idaho and Ironwood up and running. So whatever residential uses I have down here on Goldfield, they got somewhere in Apache Junction to go spend their money and aren't just skipping on down to Signal Butte. Same page, let's figure out how to make that happen. Part of making that happen is for Goldfield just to not sit floundering for the next, call it 20, 30, 40, 50 years, put it to work. One other thing to note here, I would assume that as time goes on, those freeway interchanges down there on the SR-24 are also going to see substantial commercial development. By the time any of this happens, you're going to have so many residents down there. You got massive amounts of sales tax dollars happening down south. Does that mean we don't care about the north? Absolutely not. North Apache Junction is critical to the long-term picture of this town. So we still have to drive new commercial development up to the north, but again, pick the right locations. All right, I want to point out something that's really, really a challenge. You have a question?
I do.
Yeah, thanks.
You own this property, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you just made a statement you didn't want to see the Goldfield, floundering. Mm-hmm. Are you suggesting if this isn't approved, it's just going to sit there and flounder?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. Yeah. So is this ultimatum time?
No, that's not the way I operate.
Okay.
But I mean, it wouldn't flounder because I wanted it to. Ultimatum means that there's some kind of ill intent on my part.
Sure. I mean, it's just, who didn't think that there wasn't enough traffic? You all didn't think there wasn't enough traffic. Cat didn't think. Ford didn't think. Patrick Creek Golf Course doesn't think that. Mm-hmm. Just Goldfield Road thinks that?
Well, I appreciate your point. There's validity to the point. Our traffic counts are much smaller. Our residential seasonal impact is much greater where we're at. You have it. You have the seasonal impact kind of all over the place, but certainly concentrated here. I'll get to another slide here in a minute.
Sure. Yeah, continue. This can pick up after you're done.
I mean, I just want you to know that I come here, I really do come here with sincere intent to say, I want to do the right thing here.
Sure.
And if commercial is viable here, and I'll make mention of this now, commercial is worth twice as much money to me, maybe even 3 times as much money to me as any other use.
It's worth 100 times
Yeah.
money to
So,
us.
well, I
rental.
understand that. And so if commercial truly was viable, I wouldn't be standing here asking you to not require that 5 acres to be commercial. I'd say rock and roll, let's do this thing, I'll make more money, better for you, win-win. But because I feel so strongly about this through my own personal experience with retail, as well as looking at the data, I just know that that's a hill too high to climb.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I'm just not sure that, one developer is like the end-all, be-all of the expertise on what is best for Apache Junction.
I totally agree.
This is your land, and this is what you want to do is put 271 homes on it, 271. And that'll be forever. We have to look at everything based on the next 10, 20 years. And once land is gone, it's gone. So, I mean, I can see you have a lot of information here and you've done a lot of research, and this is your, as a developer's opinion of this. And I wish we'd had more developers that would give us more information as well.
I appreciate your point, and no, I'm not the be-all and end-all, and that's why I keep opening this up to say, hey, if you guys have another way of looking at this that I haven't thought of, let's spend the time. I'm more interested in getting this right than I am in getting it done in a hurry. So if we need to take more time, let's take more time. If you want to bring in other expertise, do your own studies, find other developers who might see it differently than me, I'm open to all that. Absolutely open to all that. So, but this is your town, and you have a stewardship to make sure we get it right. And I'm just here. I've got a self-interested piece of property that I own here that I want to develop, but I also have a long history of really trying to work with cities to do things that have generational quality impact, and that's that's something that's important to me. So I'm going to kind of keep moving along here, but I appreciate that. Certainly feel free to bring in any other perspective that you can think of. One of the challenges, again, this entire presentation is centered around the question, when does the state land south of Goldfield, when does it develop? Because that's going to be what really drives me to the rooftops that I need to make that work. Well, if you look south of here, this is the Pinal County floodplain map. I have a train wreck mess of floodplain. When I say we all have it. This is an Apache Junction issue. There's a huge floodplain issue just south of here. And if you look at it, as you look at some of the other state land, it doesn't have that issue other places. It really concentrates right there. I know other cities like Maricopa, for example, have spent decades trying to figure out their floodplain issues, and it gets very expensive. Maricopa is looking at like $60 or $70 million worth of infrastructure right now to deal with a pretty substantial floodplain issue. I don't know any idea what it would cost to fix this one until some engineering gets done to deal with it. But I have to wait until that thing gets figured out before houses can get built south of me and I can have something viable down there. Just a picture of some of what it looks like out there. Real briefly, not to get spun out on this, but if you'll notice, everything I've talked about so far is more regional. Traffic, where's my traffic going to come from and all that. But if you look at the local conditions that I'm dealing with, I got a lot of local conditions that Kelsey actually had referred to that make this site really difficult to develop. Now, you don't have those same issues over on Idaho and Ironwood. You got nice big clean rectangles and things that work really well. I've got awkward geometry. I got a chevron stuck out in the front of me that's kind of blocking my view. Granted, it doesn't block the view from the freeway, but it blocks the view from the arterial. You notice that how narrow my window of frontage is between Chevron and the north end of the property. That's a challenge. It just makes it that much harder to squeeze retail in there and get my visibility and get a building. Then I've got a wash coming through on the backside of this thing that is a real challenge. And then I cannot overstate, the impact of having this private drive resort boulevard going through the middle of this. Go ask some people at Dolce Vita, how bad do you want to have commercial users coming in and out of that private drive right there? They've said it in a letter, yes.
You bring up a really good point. Why then did you develop or put your conceptual drawing together here with all the main entrances off that private driveway? Why didn't you make your main entrance off of Goldfield? If those residents don't want that kind of traffic, you're putting all of it right down their private road.
Well, the reason for that is, well, first of all, if you look at the traffic study, the residential traffic we would bring is a fraction of what would come with commercial, so there's kind of the first point. But
Well, I would believe that the commercial would be right off of Goldfield. Why would they use a private driveway to access?
But if you look at the way the site looks, I have to have full circulation, including secondary access. They would have to be
Why
coming
wouldn't
off
you
of
put your
North Boulevard.
secondary access, the exit only, instead have just your
Well,
main?
that really cripples a commercial site plan is what that does, unfortunately. So I'm already, I have the deck so stacked against me to make commercial work. If I had to do that, that's just the end of the road there. But you notice that entire northern parcel, other than that narrow little frontage on Goldfield, that is the access to that. And so your point is well taken, but our proposal brings far less traffic than what a commercial site would be. And imagine if there's a hospital there and helicopters coming in and ambulances coming in and people coming in from various places. The disruption to that very nice, quiet Dolce Vita would be a problem.
What if it was just a medical plaza and not a hospital?
Oh, it would certainly be a lot
Professional,
quieter.
or professional business plaza.
Be much, much quieter.
Yep.
I'd have to look at what the traffic counts are. But I will tell you that we've done hospitals, we've done medical office buildings, and again, all the same viability issues that I'm talking about right here, rooftop drivers and all that, that all affects the medical office building. I've got great locations elsewhere with a lot more traffic and a lot more demographics that I can't get a medical office plaza to work, so it's certainly not going to work here. Glad to spend more time diving into the details of that, but it just doesn't work.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You've given us a lot of reasons on why commercial doesn't work. I'm really not sure that what I'm not hearing from you is why you think it's a great site for you for doing this, because you've given us over an hour of negatives. So
Good point. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I think I could answer that.
because
If your
also-
average rent at this place is $2,000 a month, and you have 271 units, that equates to about $542,000 a month in rent.
It is a great site for multifamily. And Apache Junction is rapidly becoming an awesome place for new development. It's really that.
I agree, and what I think what I'm not really understanding is, I understand why you, as a developer, don't want to do anything commercial. I get it. But I also don't think that I think that there's a lot of opportunities for people who want to do commercial in our area, and we don't have very many parcels that are the size, forgetting the one to the north. But the central, you're talking 15 acres in one spot. Doesn't have to be, there's different kinds of commercial that may not have high traffic, but have high dollar turn. But I see that your particular type of commercial that you would normally do is not something you feel is viable. I'm just wondering about, because you want to be in the residential business and you feel that that's viable. I'm just not sure that there isn't some kind of commercial usage, not maybe a hospital or anything 4 stories tall, that couldn't be something that people visit and are turning money, but are also not driving through these people's private road. As Darrell said, we have Goldfield Road along here. there could be something small, I think, that could go into the site that's to the north that maybe could use that small area just to drive in because maybe they companion with the gas station, but something else maybe on Goldfield. And then the people that are living in Dolce Vita don't have to have anybody on their roads.
So thank you for your comments, and, if you know of any other uses that I can be looking at here, or if you know any other resources that we can bring in and be part of the conversation, way open to having that conversation. I live in the world of looking at, and I don't just do residential, I've done hospitals, I've done regional commercial, I've done power centers, I've done industrial buildings, I've done single family, multifamily, I've done it all. So I know what's out there that can get built or what kind of users come. I tried to get a Lowe's on one of my sites in Queen Creek not too long when I couldn't get it done because I didn't have the geometry, didn't have the traffic, I didn't, and that was a really good location in Queen Creek. So if you've got something, let's talk about it, but at the end of the day, any commercial use needs traffic. Now, Starbucks needs more than some, there's other uses that need less, but one way or another, they all need traffic. So I'm gonna kind of pick up my pace here and try to get through to some points.
Well, one. Can you shoot back a slide?
Right there?
No, this one.
Yeah.
This one. Because I just want to make sure I heard this correctly. So you were talking about these washes coming through, these water planes.
Yeah.
And you said that's a challenge for you now?
It's a challenge long-term.
It's a challenge long-term.
It's a challenge long-term because if I want to see rooftops there, that needs to be solved.
Before the rooftops go up?
You can't build rooftops in the floodplain.
So, oh, you're talking about this little area down here?
Yeah.
It has no bearing on this, where you're...
It only has bearing on commercial. If I'm doing residential, it doesn't matter. But if I need new rooftops to drive new traffic to this potential commercial site we're talking on Goldfield.
I get you.
I need that to be rooftops.
Okay.
And that's a really significant mess down there.
And you own that property there too?
No, that's state land.
That's state land? So...
Well, that's all state land.
Yeah, I figured it was, but you have it, dotted out as if...
Well, I only did that to show what a square mile looks like down there. That's all that is.
So that really has nothing to do with anything right now.
Well, if I don't get rooftops down there, if I don't get rooftops somewhere, then commercial's not going to be viable on my site. That's what I'm telling you.
That's what you're saying, and that would be an area for commercial.
I don't really see it coming from the north because of all the problems that we discussed there. This is where I think it has to come from. If you see it differently, let me know, but if I can't get rooftops there, where am I going to get them? And if I got all these floodplain issues, now what? It will get solved, but if you go back to my earlier map, this one, if you look at the grand scheme of state land, if everywhere else is more ideally located for the Brookfield, D.R. Horton types of the world, and that particular site is full of floodplain, who do you think they're going to pick last to go to? Mine just gets leapfrogged. When I say mine, it's the state land, but it's the state land south of my site. See? Thank you. All right, I'm going to try to cook along here. Won't dwell on this. These are failed retail sites that I am very personally familiar with in Gilbert. That Gilbert said, hey, we want this to be retail. They pushed, they got it, then they failed. Then later on, this is not too long ago, they finally said, all right, fine, 10 years of vacant retail is enough. They let them knock it over and build apartments. Here's another dead retail site in Chandler that just popped up. Here's a mistake that we made. We built a hotel site down in Benson based on some anticipated traffic. It didn't play out the way we thought. That ended up costing us $35,000 a month. So our awesome business plan went from we're so smart, we're so cool to, that cute little girl up there crossing our fingers as we're having to, cough up $35,000 a month to keep it alive. We have a really good retail broker. He's not the only good retail broker. There's plenty others. And if you guys want to go talk to other retail brokers and get some feedback, love to have you do that. Ours is Greg Lang. I sat him down. I said, here's the traffic counts. What can you do with this? And he just said, with those kind of traffic counts, if you can't show me where we're going to get new traffic, I just can't figure out how to get retail to you. And he's the same guy who's trying to bring me all this other retail to all these other places, and it's, in many cases, doing a great job. This is just to be funny, but I went to Field of Dreams last year. My brother lives by there, Retail is definitely not one of those things, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't, you have to have the traffic counts. So you have to have the cars, you have to have the houses, you have to have the real data drivers, the real things to make this thing happen. And I mentioned this before, it's worth a lot more money to me to do this as retail if it worked, but because it's not, I'm here literally kind of begging to please don't make me have to do retail here. I'd love it if I could, I just can't. So again, if you see it another way that I can get 10, 15,000 more vehicles on Goldfield Road, great. I don't see it coming. So now what? And this is where I want to really turn it positive, okay? I want to be part of, and not just on this project, but future projects as well. I want to be part of making the retail sales tax and the commercial needs of Apache Junction work. The places that really work are Idaho and Ironwood. That's where you have the large blocks of land, clean rectangles. Granted, there's a lot of state land issues there, and that's a problem. But you don't have the geometry issues. You don't have the wash running through like what we have. You don't have the private resort boulevard thing going through. And you're going to get more traffic going there first before you get the traffic going to Goldfield. As I showed, whatever the pattern is going through state land, it's going to get to those areas before it gets to mine. What I'd like to see happen is have residents from my Goldfield site pushing sales tax dollars over to Idaho and Ironwood.
Jason, I
Yeah.
may jump and just, everybody else is kind of jumping in, so I will.
Yeah.
I guess a couple things. I obviously, you've got a lot vested in making this a residential development, and I understand that. My concerns are 271 rental apartments from which the city will derive zero revenue. And you know that, the rental tax
That's
revenue
right.
goes
You're
away in
correct.
January. You're fully aware of that. So
Yes.
we derive no revenue from that. The only thing we would get is if we could get those folks to spend money in Apache Junction. My concern is, and I think Vice Mayor Schroeder said that, they're 30 seconds away from 60. They'll hop on 60 head west, and they've got a myriad of opportunities because we won't have any residential. There are residential developments in the last probably 5 or 6 years. You've got the Lennar, that's been there for what, 4 or 5 years? There's another development that I know when I was on planning and zoning, it was south of Lennar Homes. That's residential. There's another one up on Old West Highway, it was approved, I think it was 107 units. There is development that could still happen, but I just don't see that these 271 renters and possibly more are going to all just start rushing into Apache Junction. And then you're going to have 500 or 600 cars that are going to hop onto that resort boulevard when you've got the Dolce Vita folks wanting in and out, and you're going to fill that up. So, Jason, I understand that you can give me a myriad of reasons why commercial and retail should go somewhere else. One more thing about on Idaho. You said you would work with us and you would help us to develop those parts of Ironwood and Idaho. We have a developer that put in a business on Idaho. I was on planning and zoning. I was the chair and no, vice chair, I think. And we agreed to that development on Idaho because they promised us that they would help us develop the rest of that open land there on Idaho from the 60 down to baseline. They promised, we made them, other than making them swear in blood, they said they would help us. Has there been any development down there? No, because once that's built, once those 271 apartments are built, you guys will be gone in a heartbeat. And I appreciate you saying that you'll help us, but that is, I fear that will be
empty words.
It's just
super valid point. And what I'd say to that is the traffic, if you go back to my traffic counts on Idaho, they're still nowhere near the threshold. So whatever, and I have talked to the U-Haul guys about trying to do development there, just so you know. I've talked to them about, either employment development in the back or retail development in the front. They're dealing with the exact same issue that I'm dealing with. I'm going to show you a slide that compares that in a minute. If the fact that you're not seeing retail there yet is not a fault of theirs. It's a fault of no traffic. And the traffic just means you need more.
I understand that, Jason, but they promised us. Now, maybe I should go back and make them take a polygraph test to find out if they really meant that, but.
Well, I'm certainly not going to speak for another
They
developer.
promised us they would do that, and like I said, as soon as that place was built, man, they couldn't be.
Well, but here's what you want to know how I look at it. They are sitting on some really valuable land there that is going to be an awesome development when the time comes. So Santan Village.
So are you.
Yeah, right.
Well, but they have a different dynamic. They're going to have more traffic, they have
Always
better geometry. I've got a lot more deficits. In fact, let me just jump to that. But before I do,
I would just like to say that I think that the citizens of Apache Junction who view this town in certain ways probably have more of a positive view of our city than you do as a new developer. And I think there's reasons why we're one of the fastest growing cities in the state, is because people like our city and they have a hand in it. And part of the reason they have a hand in it is because they are the ones who voted and approved the master plan that this is trying to change. And that was the voters' will. And I think our residents, in a lot of ways, view our city as more than just the traffic counts and where there is population and where somebody's car is going to drive by, because they're more about the character here.
well, I want to say this, and I hope you can believe that I'm sincere about this. I am not negative about Apache Junction. In fact, I am thrilled to death to see Apache Junction having its day right now, and it's going to be having its day for a long, long time to come. What I've been talking about, if I've come across like I've been downplaying the viability or potential of Apache Junction in general, I really, really apologize. That's not my intent. What I'm trying to talk about is use the experience that I have in doing all kinds of development to say, here's how things flow from my experience. Here's how things sequence. And you can't just build retail on a road with 11,000 cars a day or 8,000 cars a day or 5,000 cars a day. I'm not going to get in the middle of whatever concern you have with the U-Haul guys. That's between you and them. But I can also say, hey, if I was in their position, there's no magic wand that I have to say, okay, 11,000 cars a day, let's build some retail. So they'll get there, but it takes time, and they need rooftops, and I'd like to be part of the rooftops. In fact, look at my statement here. I said instead of forcing non-viable sites like Goldfield to be retail at high risk of those sites remaining vacant or failing, push the sites like Idaho and Ironwood to make those sites work, and let Goldfield be part of pushing those sites. Don't just, get the D- sites, hope and prayer, get the A+ sites to work. In fact, I made this chart here. I'm going to skip that. Just look at this chart.
Your Honor, I have one last question before you proceed. You've been telling us how successful you are and what you've built. You must be. And as a developer, you're in business to make money.
Yeah.
I understand that. Hope you make lots of it. But the question that keeps rolling around in my brain is this. You keep telling us that this land can be nothing but residential or rental or whatever. When you bought that land, it was zoned commercial. And you keep saying you can't develop it as commercial. So my question is, why the hell did you buy it?
That's a normal part of our business, is to look at a piece of land and say, hey, I know it's zoned for this. I think it's got potential for that. why don't we just go have the conversation and see if we can make it work? Now, I should clarify, when we say it's zoned for commercial, that's true, especially on the northern tier. You saw Kelsey do the site plan, but the big chunk of this is that big hospital. And, you know, so it's kind of a weird hybrid of commercial. But back to your core question. It's a great site. It's a great site for the kind of use that we're talking about. This is not the first time that I've ever been at a podium like this, talking to people like you saying, hey, I know you've got it planned for this, but I think it would work better for that, and here's why. And look, tonight, if you're like, hey, you know what, there's a lot here to digest, we'd rather just, you know, take some more time and think about this, I'm certainly fine with that. But I would ask you to look. Yeah, I'll bring that up. If you look at this, if you compare Goldfield to the Idaho and Ironwood situation, look at all the problems that I'm facing at Goldfield that they're not facing at Ironwood and Idaho. And they are actually facing, my biggest problems they're facing there too. They don't have any rooftops to the south in state trust land. They're looking at a long wait before those rooftops comes, and that's really what the problem is that you're so concerned about. But all the other things, they are the premier spots in Apache Junction to have happen. This is where I want you to know how positive I am about Apache Junction. I believe in Apache Junction. I want to see things light up in the corridors that work. I just want mine to be part of that. So
It's just that sometimes, you know, if I go into an appliance store and I choose to get this particular refrigerator because that's the one that's sitting there and it's a good price, if I go home and it's not the right one because I really needed a different kind, maybe I can't return it. Because you know what? I should have been looking and saying, I think when I go out, I want to get what I want to utilize it for.
I would just ask that you consider two things, and then I'll wrap it up.
Well,
unless there's more questions.
I do have another question, and it's, Peter comes from planning and zoning. I came from planning and zoning. Robert was on planning and zoning. And we've seen developer after developer come through and do things like this. Straight up question. Are you going to resell this property once it's zoned, if it's rezoned?
Yeah, very likely.
Because that's what we see as a for sale sign on it. And so all I see is that you're just going for the fast buck and flipping this thing, and we'll never see you again.
So that's, and I appreciate the concern, but that's really the normal course of how the development business works.
We have a bunch of properties right now that got
but
rezoned and are sitting there blank slate with nothing happening because all it turned out to be is just a property flip and a rezone flip.
Well, I mean, let me be real clear on what's going to happen is we will find we'll either build it ourselves, and that's a very real possibility, or we'll find a development partner that specializes in this kind of development to come in and partner with us, or we'll sell it to them and do that. One way or another, the product goes forward, but that's the normal course of the land development business is to buy a piece of property, figure out how to solve a lot of the problems around it, of which entitlement is a huge part of what you got to solve for. And so, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that because that's kind of the normal way things work. It's not realistic to think that lots of people are going to come just buy a lot of land in Apache Junction and that's it. They're going to stay there forever. Investment and development has kind of this handoff effect that happens between different people in different parts of the business.
Actually, we do get some people who actually do come here, develop land, and they make this their home.
Yeah,
and sometimes we're sitting up here and we're getting a presentation by a very good professional salesman.
I would just say that Apache Junction is just on the cusp, not even on the cusp, it's past the cusp now. It's blowing up. Apache Junction is blowing up. It's great. And if your expectation of the development community is to always come in and buy and stay and never rotate out of that, then then the development community just can't operate that way. So that's going to be a real challenge. But let me leave a couple of thoughts here. Number one, if this stays the way it is, or if you approve it with the 5 acres carved out, that's basically land that's just going to sit there. And I mean that not out in any ill will kind of a way. I mean it's just sincerely that's what's going to happen. And now, yes, we don't get the rental sales tax. That's not my fault. I didn't do that.
No, I know that.
But it is what it is. But those people will help bring viability to Idaho and Ironwood. And right now, Ironwood and Idaho have a huge viability problem. And you desperately, whether you get them from me or somewhere else, you got to figure out how to get some rooftops to push that. South Apache Junction is going to take care of itself because it's got all that development happening down there. North Apache Junction, you need to be strategic and proactive, and this could be part of that. The other thought that I'd leave you with is this. It's sat now for 25 years almost with this zoning. The traffic count has not really changed in any kind of material way. It's just sat and sat and sat. The gas station happened. But other than that, we're still looking at the same thing. And so, unfortunately, if I try to continue on with what hasn't worked for 25 years, it's just going to continue to remain non-viable. Now, if we can wave a magic wand and get me some houses down in state lands just out there, different story. I just don't see that happening. So, I've taken a lot of your time. I can wrap it up now if you got more questions. Yes.
I'm going to ask a question, and your response is what you thought. If we decided to go ahead and change it to residential development, and we put, you have to have been broken ground and under construction within 3 years. If you're not, it automatically reverts back to the current zoning. How would you react?
That would be a huge challenge, and here's why. The climate to get these things built is extremely difficult, and you have timing in the market. Right now, the interest rates are high, the construction costs are high. Right now is a hard time to get this thing financed. But those things cycle, and so I might be in a position 2 years from now or 4 years from now to build this, or even 18 months from now. I don't know. But if I get put in that situation, then I have all this uncertainty around it. And now, as I'm trying to find financing partners, banking partners, development partners to come partner up with me to get this thing built, they'll look at that stipulation and go, we're out, because that, the rug gets pulled out from underneath us before we can get this done. It takes a long time to put these things together. So that would be a real challenge for us.
I literally just watched almost 10,000 homes being built in the last 6 months. So it sounds like what's happening is that you're just looking for the rezoning. That's what it sounds like to me. And then however that plays out, whether you develop yourself or turn around and flip it and sell the land, but to say that a 3-year timeline to start building is challenging, that speaks volumes to me.
Don't say complete, you said starting.
Well, and just to be clear, it takes a long time. Do you know how long it took me to get to where I'm standing here tonight?
I'm sure.
It takes you a couple of years just to get to where you're standing here tonight. So if that reverted back and I had to go back and start the process all over again and do that, I'd just be constantly chasing something I can't catch. And I would ask you to really consider the way the development business works is that kind of thing happens all the time. It's the normal course of business.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I
It's happened to us a lot.
I could sit here and make up a story and tell you things, but then he'd come after me in about 2 years, and he'd be mad because I made a promise that I didn't keep. I'd rather just tell you straight what the deal is. But the deal is this is how the development business works. Guys like me, we come in and invest in communities that we love, like Apache Junction. We work and work and work to kind of get it all lined up so that when the window's right, that we can go forward and have a good project get built. And the fact is, I don't have the financial capacity to hold, as a long-term investment hold, all the properties that we work on. We just can't do it. We have to be able to work through those so that we can go and keep doing new projects somewhere else. It's just the way the development business works. So there's nothing, you know, negative or derogatory about that. That's just the way it works. Look, I've taken so much time, and we've got Greg here and all these neighbors that are here who have a lot more that they'd like to talk about. We're certainly willing to keep on going. If you feel like we've gone too long and we need to continue this and come back and talk about it more another day, we're certainly fine with that. I'm really there's a lot to digest here. I'm just trying to be very courteous of your time.
What's that, Brian?
I was just going to say, if we were to continue, we'd still have a public hearing.
I would suggest if your presentation's over, we take 5 or 10 and then resume back.
Come
with
back for the public hearing, yep.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, you done?
No, he still has Greg and the other guy to talk. He's got another half hour, 45 minutes.
4 o'clock is coming quick.
You do got to end with my cute little animation. Watch this. This is what I want to have happen. I want cars driving from Goldfield down to bring you sales tax dollars. So that's cute. I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So I'm done.
Mayor and council, I promise I'll be quick. My job was to simply look at the land analysis, and if commercial isn't viable on 5 acres or the entire 18 acres, what would be viable? And that's what I did. So I'll go quickly through it. They got 99 slides here, about 10 are mine. So just history on the site. You guys talked about the general plan a couple times. This site was designated as high-density residential back before it was zoned for hospital use. It was HD designation for the general plan, and the zoning was TH. That's what the original vision of this was, and I recognize that's 25 years ago. But it is important, you know, when I look at land use, what the city's original vision is, that's what we found. We look at compatibility, we look at comparison to the existing zoning. I think we'll all agree traffic is significantly less, light impact to neighbors significantly less, noise impact significantly less. So this slide is simply to show the multifamily use is going to significantly be less impactful to the surrounding residential development than the existing commercial or new commercial development would be. Height was a major issue that we talked about with the neighbors. The current height of the property is 45 feet under the current zoning. Standard B1, if you were to rezone all or portion of the site to be B1, the standard height would be 35 feet. R2, which is the zoning district that we most closely follow, has a 40-foot height limitation, and our product is at 30 feet. So of all those options, our product is the least impactful as far as height, and we're agreeable to limiting that to 30 feet. And so for the neighbors, we prepared some exhibits to show impact of the view from Goldfield Road. And you can see that this is kind of the middle of the property. The very far left end of this slide, you can see the chevron canopy. So it's approximately the same height as the chevron canopy, 30 feet. And then when we overlay those different heights that are allowed by code today, which is the red one, what the R2 standard is the orange, and the standard B1 condition. If this whole site was zoned B1, 35 feet would be the allowable height. From a density standpoint, we look at what's around us. We're coming in at 15 units per acre, which is very similar to the Golden Vista project to our west. A little bit higher at Desert Sun, which is all two-story to our northwest, and then Dolce Vita, which is a lower density at 8 units per acre. So we feel it's compatible from a density standpoint. And the product was specifically designed because we're in a residential area. We're not trying to propose 3-story big apartment buildings here. We're trying to do something that fits in from an architectural style. It uses a sloped roof, very similar to single-family homes. We have attached garages, private rear yards. Each home has its own separate entrance. And the intent is to provide a lifestyle that isn't offered at a large scale in the town or the city along this infrastructure line that we think is going to be very valuable in the future, but to provide a product that is different but also is complementary to that residential, that single family character that we have adjacent to us, especially in the Dolce Vita neighborhood. And just follow up from P&Z, we've been meeting with them a couple times. We've asked them to, if they wanted to state a position, they submitted a letter to staff, just to show that they would prefer the residential use. We think that's a more compatible use than the commercial from that standpoint. And here's a copy of that letter, which I'm sure it's probably in your packets as well.
Your Honor. I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So to go back a few slides, I mean, that's all make-believe. I mean, we just heard that there is no developing partner. There is to take 3 years to get this going. This conceptual drawings of these houses, they really mean nothing. This is actually creating a situation where it looks like to people that this is ready to go. This is what we're going to do. But that's not the case, is it?
Mayor and Vice Mayor, I mean, I was hired originally by the end user.
Sure.
To
But
build
I'm just asking. That's not the
So
case, is it? That's not what's happening.
Jason, it's his land. He chooses what he does with it. I think this is very implementable in 3 years. This product was given to me from Alliance Residential. It's their product. It's something they build. It's not just fictitious.
But they're not saying, I'm coming to build this.
They were in escrow to buy it, and because of this process, they said, well, when you get it zoned, come talk to us.
So this could change dramatically over the
Other than the fact that it is being zoned with a PD overlay, which is going to lock us into site plan, development details, height restrictions. All those things are locked in and cannot be changed.
Well,
without an amendment.
but you've shown that you have room to grow based on the city codes.
Could, absolutely, and that's
Sure,
why we're committing to it now, because we know it's an important issue for the neighbors, so that if, maybe it's not Alliance that comes and builds this, it's another developer, they still have to live to those standards, and if they don't want to, they have to come back in front of this group and explain why it doesn't make sense for them to do that.
So if 18 months, 2 years goes by, you find a developing partner and he says, no, I want it to go a little higher, you're going to tell him no?
The zoning ordinance will tell them no.
Well, higher, because he's got room to grow.
Up to 30 feet.
Sure, but that's not what these are at.
These are 28. So can they grow? Yes.
Yeah.
Very minimal, 2 feet.
Three-story.
I mean, we've designed it, the zoning code, to fit this product.
Okay.
Setbacks, lot coverage, amenity package. This is the product that is intended to be built. And there was an end user when we started this process over a year ago.
So the PD overlay is maxed at 30 feet.
That's what we're willing to agree to. The B1 district allows 40 feet. We're proposing 30 feet because we think that's a fair thing to do, because the neighbors want single story. We can build up to 4 stories today. We're trying to find that medium in between, and we think that's a fair compromise.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm glad you asked the questions, because in my world, I deal with the end users, and this was a specific product, not just something that was made up by an architect.
Oh, I'm not saying it was just made up by an architect. I'm just saying that there's nothing saying that that's happening except your drawing.
Correct, and you're right. But that is, again, why we proposed the PD overlay, because it does lock in those standards. You want to speak to that?
I need you to hear very clearly that I'm completely committed to getting this product as presented, as restricted to these guidelines to market as quickly as reasonably possible. The only reason I answered
Peter,
the question
is that
the
a
way
promise?
as quickly as I reasonably can. The only reason I answered the way I did is because I know there's so many things that can slow that down, and I do not want to stand here and make a promise that I can't keep.
Okay.
That's all that was.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyways, we've talked a lot about the compatibility, but the reason we've selected multifamily for this site is because it is the most compatible. It's the most viable use here. Single family doesn't work because the site's broken up, it's too small. Industrial doesn't work for the same reasons. Multifamily is a good use here, and we feel that the product that we're committing to as far as the PD overlay is a good compromise and is complementary to the adjacent residential developments. And I won't belabor anything else anymore. I think you know what we're asking for. We do prefer the option without any commercial in it. If the council does feel like they do need to keep the 5 acres, at least the 5 acres involved, we would like to have a brief discussion on the allowable land uses. Staff has recommended that 18 of the B1 land uses be removed, and we would like to have some of those uses be back in, because if we are going to develop, we need the most options as possible. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you folks have.
see any questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
How about 8?
8 minutes? Okay. I'll time you.
Thanks, Chip.
Go out and hot box it.
I'd like to resume. Before we open this up to the public hearing, I'd like Sydney to step forward and
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Sidney Rice, Planning Manager on staff. Staff here is a number of questions and unanswered development concerns regarding the proposal. From a staff's perspective, if Mayor and Council feel that a continuance would be beneficial due to the amount of data and unanswered questions, we would be certainly open to that. If Council decides for a continuance, we could continue this case to June 4th or June 18th. Whatever you feel is an appropriate date.
Personally, I'd like to reserve any thought on that until after we finish the public hearing to hear what our citizens that stayed this long because it was important to them have to say.
we're still going to have the public hearing. So, but that was to an introduction that we could do this after instead of.
That's correct.
Yeah, so the vote on whether or not the mayor and council wants to continue this will come after the public hearing.
It has to. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll now open up the public hearing. There's a 5-minute limit for it with a 1-minute warning. Please state your name and address for the record. I'll open it up now for public hearing.
My name is Connie Wigley. I live at Golden Vista Resort, 5710 South Goldfield Road. One big issue that isn't being approached is they showed a map.
I'm sorry, ma'am, could you bring the microphone
Oh, I'm
down?
sorry. They showed a map of the 3 other communities that are already there. They have been there over 30 years. Okay, every one of those 3 communities are 55-plus residents. You have to be 55 in order to buy there. And there's at least 1,000 houses in each one of those 3 communities. And they want to put families, multifamily, mix them in with us. You're just courting disaster if you do that. And that's what I wanted to say. You're courting disaster. It will be phenomenally wrong. Thank you.
Donna Carr, Apache Junction resident. For one, when he talks about the state trust land, okay, I checked into that, it cost $2,000, I'm pretty sure he's got $2,000, to be able to go over and fill out an application to purchase state trust land. I am surprised myself, but I agree with Tess Nessa on both things that she said about putting something like a grocery store, like a small grocery store, probably like Sprouts. We got people that shop down here from Gold Canyon just to go to Fry's grocery store, because the only one they get up there is Bash's. So the thing is, what this guy reminds me of that spoke for forever is you don't understand, but it's not that you don't understand. You just don't agree with them. And to sit and constantly talk nonstop just to try to get you to believe what he wants you to believe, I don't think that it should be residential area. And when you talk about the amount of traffic that's going through there, you just want to talk about Goldfield. It's right on the Goldfield and 60. There's a lot of traffic that goes down the 60. So, I mean, people will stop there. People will shop there from Gold Canyon. And I agree with Tess on the other thing, is if it's commercial area and you purchased it and you just want to change it to residential area and probably resell it, only to make a buck. And I think that's wrong. I think that I also agree with Bambi that about the people, and that the people of AJ, they want you to listen to them, to hear them, and what they want. And it's not just what they want. I mean, they've also voted you guys into office. So why not be for the people and not for developers and the people that just want to make a buck off everybody else? And I also agree with Robert. You know, the thing is we as the people should be able to have a right to say what we want in Apache Junction. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Hi, guys. My name's R.W. Daniel. Live in Golden Vista, number 528. I just have a couple little things that I don't know if it got showed. First of all, I agree, and whenever it gets done, is going to be sold to a big corporation? They don't even know who Apache Junction is. And that corporation decides, well, we're not got this full enough. What are we going to do? Well, let's turn into Section 8, so that way we can get government housing in here. Is that a possibility that they would do? The next thing I'm wondering about is the apartments are split up. And if it's family, we're going to have kids on this side of that road, the Resort Boulevard, and we're going to have kids on that side. They're going to be playing together. If you went down that road, it's a blind corners through there. I've watched them, they just travel really fast down that road like it's a speedway. But they'll have to do some kind of a way to slow that down. But that's no problem. Another thing what's interesting is when we have teenagers there, one of those teenagers are going to get tired of going to the gas station. So they're going to start walking. Who's going to do the sidewalk from Tomahawk all the way to Gold Canyon or Goldfield Road? We still need some sidewalk there. There is a trail there, so I want people going to walk in that trail and push a buggy there. The only other thing is the internet service. It's really limited over in that area. They're going to have to do a lot of work to bring that up to par as well. But another thing I realized, well, if we want to do residential, how come they didn't, maybe it's not enough money to consider a patio home or duplexes, something that people could afford, elderly people could afford. At one meeting, they claimed some elderly people would be in there. Are they going to be living in a 2-story house? I don't think so. So why wouldn't they, I guess they don't have enough money or wouldn't receive enough money to make a duplexes and sell them, and people have they could own value and have value there. But I appreciate you guys' time and your opinion. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Lang. I'm a resident of Golden Vista, across the street from the proposed development. Could someone please put back up on the screens the reddish plat map of the developer? Ua Maokea, Ea Oka Aina I Kapono. That is the Hawaii state motto. Translated, it means the life of the land is preserved in righteousness. Now, I bring that 50th state motto up because it contains an important message for us here tonight in the 48th state. That is it righteous for us to zone this land for 2-story apartments when it is bordered on 3 sides by owner-occupied, over age 55 residents and 1-story homes at that? The developers showed lots of graphics in their presentation, but they did not show an actual photo of the land in question. This poster shows the pristine open space that is this land at the foothills of the Superstition Mountains. While we neighborhood residents are resigned to the fact that the city has no funds to acquire this land and put it into the 10-year plan, possibly for a senior citizens walking and bicycling park, we do hope the zoning can be limited to single-story, owner-occupied homes preferred. Our opposition to 2-story apartments is about more than the view, chiefly traffic. The 270 homes with more than 500 parking spaces would attract a majority of under age 55 residents, many with young, possibly reckless drivers as they try to exit their development onto Goldfield Road, which can already have chaotic traffic, especially on Renaissance weekends in February and March. One-story residences, however, would require larger footprints each. Therefore, it would mean fewer vehicles and attract more over 55 residents in keeping with the existing neighborhood. Speaking of reckless, I'm hoping that Councilman Police Officer Bryan can address two issues for me after I'm finished speaking. The first is this. Do I remember a short article about 8 months ago about a bored Apache Junction or Mesa teenager who was taking pot shots with a rifle from his second-story bedroom window to a man across the street? All of us in Golden Vista who live in exposed areas will feel like this sitting duck poster in this famous poster from the 1960s and 70s when we are out just trying to enjoy our patios. The second issue I'd hope Councilman Bryan could address is the rollover crash of about 2 months ago near the entrance ramp of Goldfield Road onto Highway 60. The vehicle crashed and rolled down the embankment and burst into horrendous black flames and smoke, which I could see from my home along Goldfield Road. That corridor along Highway 60 is no place for residential of any kind. I would propose that it be zoned light retail, commercial, restaurants, possibly for Apache Junction's own version of an elongated Old West town. It would have great visibility from Highway 60, and we immediate neighbors would love places to walk to or bicycle for many things. Possibly it could be called Goldfield Gulch. I have probably a dozen small retail commercial businesses that I think would be viable in their own right, and especially keep a development like that viable as a whole. Thank you, council members. Please do the righteous thing and limit the rezoning to single story.
I wasn't planning on saying anything tonight, but it's been an interesting evening. Catherine Meek, 1327 South Bel Air Road. I made some notes because I didn't bring anything with me to write because, well, wasn't going to be up here. First thought, rentals, more rentals, so we don't have to worry about water availability in the future. We need to
Now we get the rebuttal.
Andre Meek. Well, I can't remember my address, but anyway, over on Bel Air. Number one, houses, new houses. Where's the solar panels? Where are the gutters that gather the rain? They could have a holding pond or a holding tank to gather the rain. I get more rain than I can use here in AJ, and I save 8,000 gallons a year in my yard. So it could be done elsewhere. Be part of it. They can help supply their water. The other thing, Idaho, the only place there is that I see on building on Idaho is south of 60. Other than the golf course, it's north of 60. Everything else taken up. You got the college, you got a bunch of residential, trailer parks and all that. So, you know, I don't see Idaho becoming anything. Now, as far as Goldfield, that spot right there, you have over 55 residents that live there already. It's kind of like a dead-end road because, you know, you go to the end of it, there's baseline, and you can only make a right, and it goes through desert, basically. There's nothing there. So, you know, I'm for housing there. Commercial, you know, I don't think it's the right place for a commercial because, I mean, you go north on Goldfield, and there's all kinds of open area, and it's more closer to town, and, you know, there's nothing from Goldfield until, well, there's nothing really commercial. You start hitting churches and stuff, and, you know, I believe there's more room for commercial north of that. The previous person mentioned hospitals. You know, that would be good because we'd have more medical far east, and then Gold Canyon could come down. Now, if you put whatever you put in there that would be solid commercial, it would have to be either like one thing, you know, kind of like Cat went in, put in their big shop over there. Something like that is what you would have to have there because, you know, you look at commercial spots, like on Idaho, you have the strip mall right there, just south of Broadway. You know, there might be half the stores have residents in it. You know, it's just nothing's happening there. You know, and then you go up on Apache Trail at Meridian. You know, even though that's in Mesa, there's a whole shopping, strip mall there. There's nobody in there. You know, there's Eric Bertos, an insurance company, and that's it. All the rest of the buildings are empty. So, you know, I see the type of commercial that would have to go in there would have to be something like one-off big, you know, big truck dealer, Komatsu type dealer or something like that, or something that's really going to suck people in that they're willing to drive to there, you know, like IKEA is, you know, on the other side, you know, because they come from everywhere. But it's with Goldfield not going anywhere, you know, south, I mean, that's why traffic is, you know, just there's nothing there. But I really think that another thing would be is, you know, if it is residential, the demographics as far as, you know, we got over 55, and then you're putting upscale houses right above that, you know, going to be the younger set. I don't see that. I believe it should be another, something geared toward 55 and over. That's it. Thank you.
Hi there, Sammy Green, 3710 South Goldfield, Golden Vista, Lot 533. That corner should have never been zoned commercial. It's a lousy site, it's a lousy shape. It's surrounded on 3 sides by single residential 1-story homes. Got no business putting commercial in there. We're all old, we want to be left alone. We don't want light and dirt and noise. We don't want helicopters at 2 o'clock in the morning. We don't want ambulances. We don't want lowboys and trucks going in and out all the time. It should be residential, single-dwelling homes, just like the whole surrounding area, in my opinion. But it seems like everybody that spoke tonight wants something different. But anyhow, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peter Costantino, and I live at 3010 South Goldfield Road, number 322. And my speeches are short like I am, so I won't be long. I appreciate the fact that you're sitting there very patiently, and I know what that's like. You have my heart bleeds for you for this type of thing. Okay, so to make it short, I would rather see this land stay as it is commercial. I think that there should be some sort of business put on that land to serve the people of that area. I don't think that the housing, or rooftops as they've been called, are going to do the thing. They may bring a little revenue in, but they will not do anything for that area. It won't help it. Thank you very much for listening.
Russ Waller, Golden Vista, Lot 1004. I like kind of what you said about other uses. We kind of it's presented that that's the only use for it. But I like your idea of maybe like an assisted living, immediate care, maybe, the hospital thing seems to have gone by the wayside or whatever. That doesn't mean there's not other uses for medical there. And so another thing was he was pointing out how for 30 years that area's been sitting vacant. Well, I think it was pretty much vacant 30 years ago from here to Mesa, along 60. So just the fact that it's been sitting there nobody would have built out there 30 years ago. And then the other thing is, yes, I agree, Apache Junction has its own character. When we moved here, we picked here, we didn't want to be in Mesa, we didn't want to be right by all the businesses and everything. We felt like it was more hometown for us and lower traffic, residential, and I'd like to keep it that way. So, thank you.
Mayor, Council. My name is Bill Olson. I'm one of the landowners, and we appreciate your member.
He's a landowner.
Can I just say one thing? Can I just say one thing? That property's been there for 20+ years, commercial, and we would, if it was commercial, we'd like to sell it commercial, but we can't sell it commercial. We're not saying. Just give us an opportunity to maybe revisit this with you guys, give us a continuance. That's all we're asking, just so we could talk it through and see if we can make this work. Thank you.
Anyone else? See no movement, so I will close the public hearing. Discussion from the council. Do we want to go ahead and just make a continuance and do the talk about?
I don't.
See what we can come up with?
I would prefer not, but.
I'm from a continuance. I feel like it's too late now to kind of get any deeper into this.
What's your purpose for a continuance?
I would go to the end of June on the second.
No, what's your purpose?
Purpose is for getting together with the developer as well as us to determine what we feel is good for the area.
I would rather make one motion and depending on how it falls.
Okay, go ahead and make your motion.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that Resolution 24-09, making an amendment to our major general plan being denied. I have to give a reason. My reason is the fact that we brought the zoning the way it is sitting right now to our voters. Our citizens voted and approved it the way it was. And I would prefer that it stay the same unless we decide to bring something back and let our voters again make the choice on a change.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Councilmember Soller?
Yes.
Councilmember Nesser?
Yes.
Councilmember Cross?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schroeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Heck?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Well, I'll go along with yes. And that ends the
That
meeting.
motion passes.
That passes, so we don't have to do the other two, correct?
That is correct.
Right. You still have to do call to the public though, right?
Yeah, you still have, finish the agenda, yes.
Yeah, you still have to do call to the public.
Okay. Thank you all for being here on that part. Now it's come time for the public, call to the public. I would like to remind everyone the call to the public is a courtesy and not required by law. It's a time for the public to express requests, communications, comments, and suggestions. Request to speak form must have been filled out and handed to the city clerk before the end of the city manager's report. All issues shall be presented in a professional matter, excuse me, without personal attacks. Under the open meeting law, the council cannot engage in a discussion on issues presented, but may respond to criticism, may direct staff to follow up with the speaker directly or place the matter on a future agenda for a council discussion. There's a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. And I have two. Cheryl Biglow?
I think she's gone. She has left. She left.
Okay. And Donna Carr.
Donna Carr, Apache Junction resident. Seeing you're going to let the people be able to decide on this, I just have a question here on that, and is a petition going to help? Because I can go out and get lots of signatures opposed to this, so I have no problem doing door knocking again. So can I do a petition to be opposed to this if he's going to let the public decide?
Help her clarify.
We can't respond.
Well, we'll talk to you after the meeting.
All right, I appreciate that. Well, I don't have anything else to bitch about tonight, so have a good night.
Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Donna.
Extra water.